My lesson will be on English as a first additional language. It is catered to grade 9 students that form part of the senior phase, and the topic is conjunctions. JLZ is relevant within our teaching practices as it is a practical module that provides us with the necessary skills such as communication skills and teaching techniques that will assist us in meeting students' diverse needs. This will help us to become proficient teachers. My lesson is purpose-driven, as the students were instructed to combine sentences using conjunctions. It is structured via the authoritative method, as it is organized and consists of explicit rules. It is feedback-oriented via class discussions, the Kahoot quiz, and the worksheet. It is also interactive via class discussions and content-based activities. The purpose of my lesson is teaching the different types of conjunctions. The context is in the classroom. Rules of procedure are classroom management skills. One of my rules are don't be late. Regarding time, I will create interpersonal relationships with my students by making use of teacher-student dialogue and offering them support. Regarding power relations, there is a natural difference. I will take on an authoritative approach while my students are able to choose their own roles. Regarding language skills, there will be the exchanging of ideas, critical thinking, asking of questions, and organization. To apply instructional communication skills within the classroom, I made use of teacher immediacy. Verbal, I offered my students support by regularly checking in. Non-verbal, I gave them high fives. Teacher clarity, I offered constant support to my students and made use of the inquiry-based teaching approach to encourage them to make use of critical thinking skills. Managed behavior, I offered them rewards such as student praise and punishments such as debit points that count against them. Report, I was consistent in regard to teaching and ensured that my students understood and upheld the class rules. Effective questioning skills, I made use of open, closed, as well as higher and lower order questions. Motivate and encourage, I instructed my learners to create short and long-term goals for themselves that will motivate them, and I offered them continuous support and guidance. To ensure that effective instructional communication took place, I managed the following components. The environment. I made use of the traditional rows layout, set clear expectations and consequences for behavior or actions for my students. The students. I made use of diverse teaching methods and activities as my learners are diverse. Teacher. I ensured that I knew the content in order to earn my credibility with the students. Verbal and non-verbal behaviors. I made use of both, as I instructed the learners on what they should do and non-verbally indicated that the students were on the right track during the completion of the worksheet. Student perception of teacher. My lesson was successful as the students had a positive perception of me at the end of the lesson. Instructional outcomes. I ensured that I developed my students' cognitive, affective, and psychomotor abilities. I expressed key concepts effectively by making use of a PowerPoint presentation, the prescribed textbook, writing on the whiteboard, the Kahoot quiz, scaffolding, class discussions, and the teacher-centered approach. My communication skills have been adapted by making use of diverse LTSMs and activities which both cater to the needs of diverse learners. For learners with special needs, I have included repetition. The classroom as a social space is reflected in my lesson plan as I made use of the authoritative classroom management style where I set clear expectations for my students and I formed a positive relationship with my students. I ensured that an inclusive and conducive learning environment was created where my students shared their thoughts and opinions freely and asked questions without feeling ashamed. During the lesson, I ensured that my students showed respect towards one another, as well as one another's opinions and ideas, to create a culturally diverse environment. I also ensured that my students embraced cultural sensitivity and competence for their peers to not feel excluded or judged. I continuously encouraged my students to participate in the lesson and take part in class discussions to create an inclusive, accommodative, and social classroom environment. I will manage diversity within the classroom by getting to know my students, making use of diverse opinions and perspectives, adapting my teaching methods to accommodate my students' different learning styles, celebrating diversity, promoting multicultural education, and assessing my classroom climate to avoid bias. I will foster an inclusive learning environment by creating a supportive classroom community where the students feel respected and accepted, by promoting student content and peer engagement, by allowing students to interact with the content in different ways, and by showing the students how the content of the lessons relate to their lives. Conclusion: the importance of communication skills are to ensure that my students understand the content and what is expected from them, to build positive relationships with my students, to promote active listening, and to create an inclusive and effective learning environment. Challenges that I might face include challenges in instructional communication, such as sticking with the authoritative approach. If I implement rules, I must ensure that I follow them. Otherwise, my students won't. Another challenge I might face is the challenge in ensuring that diversity is managed within the classroom. I might only cater to certain learners' needs and not others. Thus, I should remain constant and ensure that I cater towards all my students' academic needs.